I grew up with a family, two parents, and it was very challenging because both of my parents were not on the best of terms, and there was love there, but there wasn't love for us, so we struggled with boundaries and communication, little simple things that other families get that ours didn't really get. And I know that my mom and dad did the best that they could with what they had and what they were going through. But when your parents live on two separate floors and you have to go to one and one says something about the other, and it's just a back and forth. At a very young age, I was confused, and I knew that if I didn't get a favorable answer from one, I could just go to the other and manipulate the situation. So that's how I started, and that's when I could put on masks and I could get what I wanted, at a very young age. Later in life, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away very suddenly. He was diagnosed 2 months later, he was dead, and this struck my mom. My mom didn't know what to do or how to handle it, and at that time, my mother and I, praise the Lord that she's been delivered, but at the time we used together, and we used everything under the sun that we could, and afterwards that started something with us that grew a wedge in between our family and made the communication and all the boundaries just completely go out the window. I started using drugs at, I would say 14. I was in high school and all of my friends said, after school today, we're gonna go smoke a bowl. And I was like, okay, and I didn't know what that was. I thought we were just gonna have a bowl and put smoke in it. And I showed up and it was completely nothing like I expected. And I enjoyed every second of it. From the way it made the music sound, from the way the food that I was eating tasted. It was the escape, that I was really searching for that I never got. And after that, it went from, I just smoked pot to yes. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll try this ecstasy. Yes, I'll do this cocaine. Yes, I'll try anything that'll make me feel different, because that was the only place where I felt safe. And there wasn't anything that could really stop me. I would do pretty much anything on a daily basis. And then once my father died, I found pain pills. It was like this for a good year. And after I ran out, I started to get sick and I had no idea what was going on. And the withdrawals were so bad. And a buddy of mine's like, oh, you're just sick. You just need to get some opiates. And I said, okay, well, what can I do? And he took me to the city, and that's where I found heroin. And after I found heroin, everything in my life changed forever. I was living a very unmanageable lifestyle all throughout my 20s. I still worked, and then I found methadone, and I thought that was my help. And then I found Suboxone, and I thought that was my help. So all these times I knew I was getting the help I needed, but it wasn't really helping me at all. It was just delaying the inevitable. And then, about 5 years ago, I had a child. I have a beautiful daughter, and that's when I told myself, well, I'm gonna have a child, I'm gonna get clean, everything's gonna change, and this is what's gonna happen. But none of that happened. It actually got worse, and I started using more because of where I was at in sales, and it just would help me be that Superman, if you would, door to door, and provide for my family. I had everything I needed. I had a security blanket. I had a home. I knew as long as I made this amount of money, with my mortgage was paid and the electricity and all those little bills were paid, I could go out and go do whatever I wanted. And I had all of that. And that was what I lived by until God had other plans. And in January 2023, I had a tornado take my house out. And after that, that's when everything started falling apart. We were put in a hotel for 2 months, as we figured out the deal with insurance. And they said because the damages outweighed the actual cost and the value of the home, that they were just going to pay off the house. We would keep the house with the tree through it, and good luck. And after that, They put us in corporate housing and apartments for 6 months. So I had 6 months to figure out what I was going to do next. And I knew at that point, I knew I needed help. And my buddy at the time, Stan, I came to him and I said, hey man, I need help. I'm struggling. What do I do? And he was like, I know somebody from One Way in First Baptist Jonesboro. I can give you his number. His name is Alfred Jones. You call him. So this was July 2023. And I called Alfred, and Alfred's like, okay, you know, after the interview, he's like, you can come here. You just got to be here the next day. And we have a bed for you. Well, I backed out and still went back thinking I could do it on my own again. And a couple months later, this was it. Like I was just at the point where now I'm ready for change. So I called Alfred again, and Alfred's like, no, you're not serious enough, but I do know somebody you can call, and here's Billy's number. So I called Billy, and Billy was like, okay, well, if you quit your job and go to detox, we have a bed for you. And the next day I quit my job, and that same day I was in detox. And then I was at Pine Woods for 7 days. 7 days later, Tommy comes to pick me up. My first day at A Better Way, I was still sick. I was still going through withdrawals. It wasn't as bad, you know, but I was still sick. And I come down to the office, and I meet everyone down there. And I do remember there being some red velvet cake down there because this was right after the holidays and they had a bunch of stuff left over. So I'm filling out my application and go through, and I meet everyone, and I was like, okay, this isn't gonna be bad, you know? And they're like, okay, well, we're gonna take you to your house and kind of show you the ropes and get your stuff set up, and then you're gonna work on property for the day. I said, okay. And working on property that day was Friday, and we had to make over 100 beds on the entire property. So that was the very first thing I had to do. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make this, because I'm up there making a bed like how I know how to make a bed, but it's gotta be 2 hand lengths, 1 hand length, 90 degrees, you know, crisp. And Billy had said spiritual boot camp, but none of that resonated with me until I actually got here and could see it, you know, and they have standards, and that's what I walked into. The structure here at A Better Way, the waking up at 4:45, 10 minutes to get out of your bed, walk down the stairs, sit in a room full of people, reading your Bibles and your 1 cup of coffee, was different. I didn't grow up in a home with the Lord, you know, so everyone's sitting there quiet, reading their Bibles. It was different, you know, and afterwards we prayed it out. I tried to sneak in 3 cups of coffee that day, but Alejandro Gertman assured me that that wasn't going to happen. And he watched me pour out my cup of coffee over the sink. We get in line, not able to talk. We go down for breakfast, and we have 5 minutes to eat breakfast. I'm eating these hot grits. I'm like, man, what is going on? So I went to go take my plate up. I was like, okay, I'm done. They're like, we don't throw away food. And every second was just something different that I wasn't used to dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And but now I see why these things are in place. The brotherhood at A Better Way is something that you only can really understand as you get further into the program. You know, you hear the guys say it all the time, the brotherhood. But when you really go through things with these men, and you really feel these things with these men, and you have them holding you accountable and loving you through it, even at your worst or when you're going through things, that's when you start to feel it, and you start to see, you know, the unity that is here from that, you know, because there is no faking it till you make it, and there is no just pretending. Like, you're gonna deal with it raw as possible with no masks and no games, because these men are out there doing the same thing you were doing before. And so it feels good to have that here, to have true brothers that really do care about you. And when you try to leave, because everyone tries to leave, they're there, you know, telling you no, you know, just to have that love and care is something that I didn't grow up with. So it's nice to have and know that that's here. The trip to Florida was definitely special. I remember getting everything ready and prepared to go down there, and we have our group, and we got a bunch of snacks, and we're all eating sweet tart ropes, and we're all riding down there just singing, music, and it just felt different. Because every time I went to the beach, the things I had prepared beforehand were not the things I had prepared as we were going. Everything was planned and thought out. There was no drugs involved, so it was just different. And getting there and being at the beach house, I enjoyed every moment of it. Waking up that first morning and seeing Brother John up before us, it invigorated me to emulate that model that he was doing. We all preach the devotion, but he's really living it, waking up and giving his time with God. And that's one thing I remember, just the soft jazz music and just sitting out on the porch, watching the lightning dance behind the sky and just talking to God, and contemplating, praying, and just really feeling that morning time with the Lord, and then sitting down doing devotion with our brothers at the table. And I had been baptized 3 or 4 times before, and this time I knew that this baptism was when I really meant it. I wasn't just doing it to appease the people around me or to show faith that I didn't really believe in. This time I was really leaving it all in the water, because I had drawn that line in the sand and I wasn't going to go back to who I was, and it was good. What God has done through A Better Way to me was to reach his hand down and to show me that he's there. The Lord used A Better Way to give me structure, to give me guidance, to give me all the things that no one else around me could do. He used this program to pull my life out of the muck and mire and to show me that there is real love out here and there's care, and all you have to do is just walk in obedience and have the faith to know that he's going to take care of everything. So I'm so grateful for this place. I'm grateful for Brother John, Brother Doug, and all the people here that have helped make me a better person, because without this, I wouldn't have A Better Way. Without this place, I wouldn't know the Lord. John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. This place is the vine that led me to the branch, and now I know that through him there's nothing that I can do, and I'm so thankful for A Better Way.